and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Brandy, a weekly show where we talk business and personal finance, taxes, and how to make money doing what you love. I am your bookkeeper and tax preparer and your host, Brandy Miron, and this is episode number 21. And this is a special episode. It is the final episode of season 1. As I've mentioned in the past couple episodes, I'm going to be taking a season break here over the tax season. So today will be the last episode of season 1. You can always go back and watch any of the first 21 videos either on Facebook or booksbybrandymiron.com. And then I will be back in May with more information and hopefully better than ever. So today's video, we're going to talk about the steps that you'll want to take if you're hiring an employee for the first time in your business. Last week, we talked about profit-focused reasons that you should and should not hire an employee, things to look for in candidates, and things you should consider about the true cost of hiring an employee. So if you missed that episode, go back and watch episode 20. There is a lot to cover today, so let's just dive right in. Once you've decided the position that you want to hire for, the wages that you are going to pay, and how often you are going to pay your employee, you can then get ready to start actually paying them and hiring them. So the first step is you will need a registered payroll deduction account with Canada Revenue Agency. So if you already have a corporation, you should already have a business number set up, but you'll still need to call and register a payroll account. And if you're a sole proprietorship, you can do that as well. Just call, it's the same line, you call and set that up. So you can register either by calling CRA's toll-free number, which is 1-800-959-5525. You can send a form request by mail or fax, or you can register online. And again, all of this information will be in the show notes as always. CRA will ask how often you plan to pay the employee, so make sure you have that planned before you call. Then the next step is you are going to draw up an employee agreement or contract. So this isn't actually necessary by law. You don't have to do this, but it's a really good way to do the research and find out what you're responsible for as an employer in terms of Alberta employment standards, and also to make sure that you both are on the same page in terms of what's expected from each other and something to always fall back on if there's something awkward that comes up during the period of employment, okay? So here are the things that I want you to think about when you are drawing up an agreement. So the first one is probationary period, okay? So probationary period, so in Alberta, both the employee and the employer can terminate employment at any time for any reason within the first 90 days. There doesn't have to be any notice given. There doesn't have to be any reason given. You can just say this isn't working, goodbye, within the first 90 days. So if you choose to make the probationary period shorter than that, you could, but 90 days is the law one. So I would always pretty much recommend sticking with that. Okay, the second one is the vacation policy. Okay, so the vacation policy is what is set out by employment standards is that if once an employee has been working for you for 1 year, they are entitled to 2 weeks of paid vacation. So you can either choose, so it works out to be 4% of their wages, just the way that the weeks work out, okay? So you can choose to either pay that out on each pay, or you can choose to bank it for them for when they take the vacation time. Again, that is what employment standards sets out. So if you wanted to be more generous than that, you could, but you can't be less generous than that. So after 1 year, they get 2 weeks. After 5 consecutive years, they get 3 weeks with pay. And that is the only... Oh, there's also certain types of leaves that are mandated by employment standards. So there's bereavement, maternity, compassionate care, and there's a few others. I'll, again, link it in the show notes. But just be aware that there are, again, for those leaves, you don't necessarily have to pay them for it, but you do have to give them that time off, okay? The next one is the lates and absent policy. So how should the staff person tell you that they're going to be late or absent? Do you want them to text you? Do you want them to leave a voicemail? Like how far in advance do you want that information? Is there a policy in place? Like, for example, you could set out if you're late 3 times in a 3-month period, you get a warning or whatever. Like, that's for you to lay out. And again, a really good idea to put in the agreement that you both sign when the person is hired, so that later when these things come up, you have that agreement to fall back on. Okay. The next one is benefits. So are benefits available and when? So medical, dental, extended health benefits are one of the only things that you can provide to your employee without them having to pay tax on it. You don't have to provide this by law. It is a nice perk that a lot of employers offer, and typically a lot of employers will offer it after that 3-month probationary period. There's, costs and time associated with getting them set up on a plan like that, so it's kind of a nice thing to know that that employee is there for the long haul in order to get them set up. So again, if those benefits are going to be available, just put that in your agreement. The next one is salary. So here you want to be really specific. How much will they be paid? So remember to abide to the minimum wage rules, which right now at the time of this recording is $15 in Alberta. When will they be paid? Once a month, every 2 weeks? Will reviews be done on salary in any timely basis? So for example, are you going to be doing reviews at 6 months? Are you going to be doing reviews at a year? Hours, is it part-time or is it full-time? Will there be any overtime? So for most employees, overtime means that they work over 8 hours a day or over 44 hours in a week. And that overtime would get them 1.5 times the amount of their regular pay or 1.5 times time off, okay? Are there specific hours? The basic employment standard rules are that employees are allowed to work up to 12-hour days. You have to provide 30-minute breaks for every 5 hours of work, and there must be 8 hours of rest between each shift. Okay? The next one on here is responsibilities. What do you expect the staff to do? What can they expect from you? Where is the place of work? Is it in the office? Is it in the home? Is it on the road? The next one on the list here is confidentiality and intellectual property. So for certain companies and industries, it'll be really important for you to have some kind of non-disclosure or confidentiality agreement in place or a non-competition in place. So you just want to make sure, if that is your industry or your company, you may want to run those type of things by a lawyer just to make sure that your wordings are going to hold up in a court of law if they have to, but just something to consider in your agreement. And then the last one in the agreement that you should think about is termination. So in order to be in accordance with Alberta labor standards, after the 90-day probationary period is up, you may only terminate an employee by giving termination notice or pay or a combination of both. So the notice period depends on how long the employee has been employed for. And there's like a big chart that I'll put up for you, but essentially if they've been there for less than 2 years, you have to give 1 week notice. And then it kind of goes up in increments until if they've been with you longer than 10 years, you have to give 8 weeks notice. So it's kind of everything in between. And again, I'll link that chart for you. There are a few instances where this termination notice would not be required. So for example, if you hire someone specifically only for a season and you tell them that up front, so let's say you're a gardener and you're like, I'm only hiring you for the summer, you don't have to give them that termination notice because they should know that their contract is up by the end of August. The other one is construction workers don't fall under these termination laws, or if you're dismissing your employee for just cause. But in all cases, no matter what, you should always be providing some sort of written termination notice, okay? In the agreement, you should also specify how the employee may terminate if they want to leave on their own terms, okay? So according to Alberta labor laws, an employee must give you 1 week notice if they've been there for under 2 years and 2 weeks if they've been there for over 2 years. Whether the employee quits or you fire them, the employee must be paid all of their wages, including overtime pay, vacation, general holiday pay, everything within 3 days after their last day. If they did not give you the required notice, so let's say they just left without giving you any notice, you don't have to pay them until 10 days after their notice would have expired. So if they had been with you for less than 2 years and they just left without any notice, you would actually have 17 days. So 7 days for the week and then another 10 days after that. A record of employment must also be filed and sent to the employee within 5 days. Okay, so once you have that contract written out and everyone is in agreement, then you must get your employee's SIN number. They also have to fill out and sign a federal and a provincial TD1 form. So those forms, I'll link them for you, but you can also Google them. Those forms will tell you how much tax they want taken off their pay. So they're very important to have, and you must keep those records for 3 years. If you choose to offer direct deposit, you will also require either a void check or some kind of one of those direct deposit forms. And now you're ready to pay. So you might think that the hard part's over, but now you have to think about how you're going to calculate the taxes and CPP and EI, and we talked about that a little bit last week. So again, if you want a refresher, go back and watch episode 20. But you'll use the TD1 forms that the employee fills out to either calculate the source deductions on your own, and there is a payroll calculator online you can use. But remember, you'll have to produce the pay stubs, you'll have to produce the T4, you'll have to produce a record of employment when they leave, and you need to keep a detailed record of all the money that is paid and remitted in the time that they're there. Okay, so it's a lot of work doing payroll, but thankfully there are softwares and services that are available that do all of this for you. So this video is not sponsored in any way by QuickBooks Online, but I do recommend that they have a great add-on payroll program, which I, of course, am fully certified in. It offers direct deposit, automatic payroll source deductions remittance, so it basically pays the bill for you, and printable pay stubs. It will also calculate vacation pay, medical benefits, and it will aid you in preparing T4s and records of employment. You will have a detailed log of all the amounts paid and remitted to comply with CRA's regulations. So I recommend this software to clients a lot to either like run on their own or as part of my payroll service where I basically just do everything for them. As I mentioned in my last video, you're typically looking at about $50 per pay for a service like that, okay? When determining pay for your employees, whether it's hourly or a salary, don't forget about stat holidays. Immediately after employment, must be paid to eligible workers. Workers are eligible if they work their scheduled shift before and after the stat, and or if they're required to do so, they actually work on the general holiday. So if the employee isn't required to work on the stat holiday, but they did work the shift before and after, then you still have to pay them for an average day's pay for that day. If the employee does work on the stat holiday, then they're entitled to either 1.5 times their regular wage or their regular wage plus a paid day off. In Alberta, the mandatory stat holidays are New Year's Day, Family Day, Good Friday, Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, Remembrance Day, and Christmas Day. We got through a lot this episode. So of course there are exceptions to every rule, okay? And this video can't possibly cover them all. So for example, there are extra special rules if you hire a minor, or there's tons of rules about what is considered a taxable benefit to your employees. So like anything that you pay to your employees besides regular wages, and just a hint, it's pretty much everything is considered taxable to your employee. So just there's tons of other increases. I can't say that word. So there's tons of other information that you need to know about. If you check out the show notes for this video, there will definitely be a lot of links and a lot of extra resources for you to check out there. And feel free to call me anytime and I will answer your questions about payroll. And that is it for this week. And that is it for season 1 of Chat with Brandy. It's been such a pleasure to film these last 21 videos. And I hope they've been helpful for you in your small business or your financial wellness endeavors. And I will not see you next week, but I will see you after tax season. Bye.